There's one thing I always sort of ask myself about whenever it comes to these new metal bands or newer groups that have been coming out of the woodwork in the past 10 years. It's where they arrive at their names from. What is the process, the thought process that they go through whenever they are deciding upon what to call themselves for essentially their career. Why did a certain name stick? And Miss May I is a great example of that. Really, whenever you hear those three words roll off the tongue in one to form a band name, you don't think of a heavy metal group. You probably think more of maybe a pop-punk group or something like that. Definitely not something that you'd expect to be actually more in the middle, right between Atreyu and the Black Dahlia Murder. I know some of you are probably looking at me like I'm fucking nuts, but stick with me. Believe me, it's all worth it. We have to talk about Deathless, and no, we're not talking about the Revocation album that came out. We're instead talking about the Miss May I album, which is coming out, or depending on when you're viewing this, has come out. Time is weird, isn't it? Well, we need to speak about this album not only because you guys in the Cover Killer Nation indicated your interest to me, but also based around the fact that opinions were very mixed about their album, their last album, which I believe was called Year of the Lion or something like that. This is the first time I've actually talked about Miss May I as far as I can recall, so this is all relatively new to me. But from what I was able to hear in order to determine my Atreyu v. Black Dahlia Murder description was based off of what Deathless kind of is all about. This is one that really navigates some of the extremes of what could be considered melodic metalcore, either that or even melodic deathcore in some locations. But this is one where Miss May I is a group that sort of executes it a little bit better than most in that department. I know some of you are still looking at me like I'm nuts because I'm saying that about a group that I'm comparing with the Black Dahlia Murder and Atreyu, which, yeah, in some circles, great description, others not so much. However, this is what I mean. This is a group where the energy of both groups, Atreyu and the Black Dahlia Murder, converge in order to create the atmosphere, and then whenever it comes to structure musically and whenever it comes to vocalization, that's where the diversity comes together, converges, and actually creates a brand new product. We have with us a very aggressive style of melodic metalcore. We have one that definitely has a lot of root and foundation in a little bit of thrash metal, actually, which actually gives the melodic nature of this even more of kind of a frantic structure, which actually brings a little bit more to the table than your traditional essence of what melodic metalcore is all about. In fact, it has a little bit more of a debt to owe to melodic death metal groups such as maybe even At the Gates whenever you think about it, although it doesn't have quite the same sinister snarl to it. This is certainly one that has a little bit more of a register of leaning toward what some may claim as the mainstream. This is instead a group whose aggressive, more thrashy tendencies provide for the franticness of my Black Dahlia Murder comparison. This is where the vocalization and the overall just resonance of this group certainly has all of that characteristic, with, once again, a little bit of reservation whenever it comes to the brutality of it, whenever it comes to the sheer backbone behind it. And don't take the word backbone to mean that these guys are pussies or wimps or anything like that. It still has a lot of girth behind it. It's one that definitely sells itself very, very well based around this side of their music. But I know what's going to really captivate a lot of individuals on this album that are more toward the fringe line of heavy metal is the attractiveness of the clean vocals, which is where the Atreyu reference kind of comes in. But this is something actually that traditional heavy metal fans could maybe get into as well, simply because there are plenty of other aggressive groups out there that have attempted or have done clean vocals or used cleaner style vocals for choruses interwoven within aggressive melody, and they are beloved groups by a lot of individuals. So this is one where some of the harmonization actually really comes together and provides a suitable and pretty darn awesome atmosphere. The title track itself really proves this as well, but whenever I think about that, I think about songs such as Arise or Turn Back the Time, which Turn Back the Time is a strange track because it launches right in there and introduces the lyrical idea with the title of the song, and it's kind of irritating. It's one that feels a little bit basic as opposed to really open and dynamic, but the chorus of this track is really where the strength is, as opposed to the body of the work, which, traditionally speaking, on Deathless here by Miss May I, the body and the verse structure is where a lot of the bulk of the aggressiveness and the girth and the balls, if you really want to put it that way, really come for this disc. And for those folks who lean a little bit more toward the Black Dahlia Murder side of things, that's what you're really going to find a little more enjoyable, considering the frantic structure does have a very, very aggressive tone to it. Overall, this is an album that also flows relatively well. I feel as though, in spite of my recent, like a minute ago, praise of songs such as Turn Back the Time, that the second half of this album kind of lulls off, especially whenever you get from tracks 8 through 10. I think that the aggressiveness is still present. It just doesn't pack quite as decent of a wallop as some of the tracks in the middle. In fact, the 4th through, I would say, the 6th and really even part of the 7th track is really where the bulk of the chi of this album really comes from, and it does so in a nice little run of songs, almost like a sports team on a winning streak, where it just seems like everything is picking and hitting at the right time. Everyone is pitching and hitting and doing their jobs. It's very reminiscent. It reminds me of baseball season. It really does, where the first couple of songs, it was kind of win, loss, win, and then you have 4 straight wins, and then you have a series that's a little bit rough. Metaphors aside, this is actually kind of a surprise. I went into this disc not knowing too much what to expect, but having a lot of individuals kind of giving me a sense of more dread than anticipation for the disc. So I went in with perhaps my expectations being just a little low. So I ended up being pleasantly surprised by this product. It was one that actually held its own quite well. It's still not one that's going to absolutely blow you away, though Miss May I fans, which is hard enough to say, I think that you guys are going to enjoy this album because it has a lot to offer. It does have 2 sides that converge together nicely to build a beautiful repertoire of songs, one that certainly will suit your needs just as well, considering this is 36 minutes long. It's something you can easily jam out to while you're taking a road trip. Overall, the album's pretty decent. I really kind of dug it. 79 out of 100. I think that there are still some songwriting qualms that need to be worked out a little bit, kind of get the consistency going. I still feel that this is a group whose writing has not quite hit that peak, and I can hear that just by some of the tones and some of the more simpler structures of the songs, where it seems like there's a little bit of a tendency to repeat some old ideas as opposed to trying something new, and I'm actually encouraging that in this situation just to give it a little bit of a fresh punch. But again, I'm not extremely familiar with their back discography, so for all I know, this could be wildly different and actually a very, very nice, happy medium for the group. So that's actually where you guys letting me know in the comments below about this band and about your thoughts on this album really becomes very, very important and paramount to really not only my understanding about this group, but also other people's understanding about this group. This is one to share with people. This is one to make sure that if you like it, that perhaps they also could be a fan of Miss May I. So what did you think? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, actually perhaps later today. Very important video. It involves an animal and a method of execution. If you can figure that out, put that in the comments below too. Peace.